This week we're getting into a little bit having to do with just regular news, general news. But I didn't want to leave the idea of spot news. And I know we've talked about context a little bit, but I wanted to illustrate some context with you with a couple of shots here from the same story. And this story goes back also to the earthquake in Haiti in 2010 there, and the images that follow are not going to be pleasant. Just give you a little bit of a warning that way. The first photograph is this one, and it's one that was taken by a photographer by the name of Paul Hansen. And what we're seeing here illustrated in this context is a young dead girl who did not die as a consequence of the earthquake. She was shot to death because she was suspected of looting the wall art that she had in her arms. There still has the merchandising corners on them, as if she had taken them from a store or some kind of retail, and she was summarily executed for her looting. In the background, we have two other looters who are walking along, free to do so, it appears, with that smoke in the background, the dramatic sky, the stage upon which the body of this young girl lies, the broken concrete behind there. This all comes together and tells a pretty stunning story in terms of what was going on there. Another photograph, this one taken by a guy by the name of Nathan Weber, shows Paul Hansen taking the photograph of the girl. And it gives us a reverse context, more of the story, in fact, here, where we see in the background the man with the white shirt and the blue trousers, the blue Levi's, is that girl's father. And he went and got Paul Hansen and other photographers to go through and create this image, which he did, which they all did. And there are a number of iterations of that. If you did a Google image search, you'd find that. But it's fascinating to go through and see this from the storytelling part in terms of Paul's image, and then the larger context of the story in terms of, especially from a cultural and social standpoint, what Nathan was able to capture with that. Aside from context illustrated, I want to get into this concept of context being denied. And during the lead up to the Gulf War in 1991, Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney instituted a ban on news media coverage of the honor guard ceremonies that marked the return of military casualties from abroad. So the ban was that no flag-draped coffin was allowed to be photographed or published by the media, almost as if we don't recognize that soldiers are dying in this conflict, then it's really not happening, kind of a thing. Well, the Obama administration reversed that ban in 2009 there. But a little earlier, in 2004, in fact, the Seattle Times published this photograph of coffins of soldiers killed in Iraq being shipped back to the United States. And as you can see here, the photograph's quite remarkable in terms of while there's an honor here in terms of the flags draping the coffins, they're packed in here with other cargo, and they're being strapped down, to make the flight. Well, a worker by the name of Tammy Silicio, she's the one who took the photograph. She was a military contractor working at the airport in Kuwait, where these coffins were being loaded onto the planes to be flown back to the United States. And she had a little point-and-shoot camera, and she took the photograph like this with no thought of publishing it. Again, because she saw the contrast here in how this was coming together. And she emailed that pic to a friend of hers back home. Her friend, whose name was Amy Katz. And Amy was so struck by the photograph that she contacted the Seattle Times. And there was some back and forth. Ms. Felicio agreed to allow the image to be published for no compensation, and then it appeared on the front page of the Seattle newspaper. And Silicio's employer, who was Maytag Aircraft, then fired her and fired her husband, David Landry, from their jobs in Kuwait, explaining that the United States military had expressed very specific concerns about the incident. Now, Silicio had no idea about the ban in terms of her going through and taking that picture. But she ended up paying the price by being fired from her job. So did her husband that way. The Pentagon released about 6 months later 360 previously secret photographs of flag-draped coffins of United States soldiers returning from Iraq. And they looked a little different. They had to go through and erase, perhaps, the ideas that were put out there into the media by Tammy Silicio. So that's what I mean by context denied.